great Canadian talk show.
There's only a couple of watts, but I brought the truth to everyone within 3 blocks of the west side of campus.
No way! Yes way!
And now, let's get right down to business with Marty Gold.
In the Crime Board Public Safety Update, there's a story that the Free Press published. There's 2 words missing from that story. We're going to be getting, games they play with words and language, very strange. One of the reasons that on 92.9 Kick FM, the Great Canadian Talk Show, was able to make a difference, and frankly also with City Circus on Shaw TV, is that we pay attention to stories at ground level because we have an innate sense of, well, first of all, we have an innate sense we like to think of right and wrong, being a watchdog over taxpayers' dollars and also over public processes. And certainly on Kick FM, we made our mark, and it culminated really in the coverage of the 2010 civic election, which was punctuated by controversies all over the city about the imposition of bike lanes and other changes to traffic flow amenities. And frequently we found that residents and businesses were barely consulted, not given full information, et cetera, et cetera. We've established that we have a reputation for that. That's one of the reasons why we ask for public support, because unlike all these newsrooms that get government money one way or the other are owned by big corporations, it's just us. And nobody else covers these stories. Nobody else, I'm going to repeat this, nobody in the media stands up for business, for small business, except for the Great Canadian Talk Show podcast. Nobody. And it's wrong, because things are being done that are wrong. And today we're going to move forward with our 3rd installment, Moving on Marion, Part 3. Remember, the goal of the project is to improve traffic flow, safety, and livability on Marion Street. That is how they describe it. That is the selling point. First podcast, City Hall's fact-free St. Boniface bike lane briefing, far more true than I realized. The second one explained how I had spoken with businesses in the neighborhood and that the local bank had been double-crossed. St. B bike lane plan double crosses bank and the bike lobby, and that this plan puts a bike lane where nobody ever wanted it, asked for it, and would take away the parking from the bank and from a canine care facility, as we put it, a doggy daycare, and more. I think I enumerated 8 businesses thus far on the podcast. No, it was 9.5, that we're unaware of many factors. The open house that was held, the plan for a bike lane, the loss of parking, et cetera, et cetera. Our 3rd installment, Marion Street businesses kept in the dark about bike lane, got a lot of reaction. In fact, I guess I misspoke. This is now the 4th installment, Kenny.
Oh.
Look, how deep do we have to go? First, they have a fat-free open house that none of the businesses were invited to. Then it turns out their bike lane plan double crosses area businesses and double crosses the bike lobby. And then I get confirmation that businesses were kept in the dark about the bike lane plan when they started listening to the first 2 podcasts, watching the YouTube videos that were specifically about this topic that we're covering, this investigative series. And the more we asked the businesses in St. Boniface about the Moving on Marion roadway changes, plan for outside their front doors, the worse it got. And I'll elaborate later. It got worse this week. I talked to had another couple of conversations with area businesses. Here was the reaction on Facebook to our reporting on how many businesses had no idea about the bike lane being proposed, or that they would be losing parking. And we said, this publication and open house, we thought it was city staff, because I didn't pay that close attention, I admit it. It turns out it was by paid consultants, third parties. 2 different consulting companies, one responsible for the talking with the public part of it, the other for the explaining the engineer designs and other factors. So if this is consultants screwing up, this is just like 2010 and with the bike lanes, and just like other one-sided public consultations, including, as we explained on this program, the Marion Freeway debacle of 2015-16 went on over quite a period of time, landing in the laps of City Hall. And again, that's where consultants were simply not ensuring that there was a level playing field. That's as neutral as I can put it. Here's the reaction on Facebook from probably the St. Boniface Facebook group. There's a few including our own group. By all means, join up. TGCTS on Facebook. I don't understand what City Hall is thinking. This idea is as dumb as the roundabout on Kenny that stopped the school buses. And then now they say they need a bike lane for a half dozen bikes. Okay, well, that roundabout on Kenny is part of the Eugenie Greenway, which is going to come up in this discussion. Kenny, did you ever hear that school buses did they have to change routes because they couldn't go around that roundabout on Kenny?
No, I never heard about that. You think that would be addressed?
How is it that nobody ever reported on that?
I don't know. That's crazy, right?
Another person
there's so many people that should be like every kid, and like, oh, why can't we go down the street anymore? Well, because the roundabout.
Traffic dot. I work on Marion, said one person. If I see 3 bikes a day, I'd be exaggerating. Imagine the same person. Imagine counting the number of people swimming across rivers to justify where we build bridges. I got another. This wasn't a message. This was a public comments. Marty, excellent work. What was it last week? Go get him, Marty.
Go get him, Marty.
Marty, excellent work. As a home care worker in the St. Boniface area, parking issues are already leading to delays. Did the consultants hear this from anybody, you wonder? As a restaurant patron, for example, Boone's, Vientiane, those are both in the same strip mall on Marion. Parking issues have already caused me to move on as a spouse of a cancer survivor.
Huh.
The bike lanes by Cancer Care HSC cause closed access parking for the patients and their loved ones who want to support them to be almost non-existent. Hardships returning and delivery businesses, parking's that is squeezed. Okay? I can't cycle to take my loved one to the hospital for chemo. Now, there was a response by another individual, well identified as a close friend.
Did he say that he can't cycle his partner to chemo?
It was a woman. She's saying, well, I can't, right? Here's a comment from somebody closely aligned with, by coincidence, with the local city councillor, Matt Allard, somebody who comes from the spectrum of society that links lifestyle, cycling to art to lifestyle issues, etc. The redesign plan looks great. What's all the fuss about? Well, you can tell this is somebody who's never actually operated a real business.
Yep.
There's still lots of street parking. We'll talk about how much street parking next week.
And like how effective it is.
What's proposed for the street parking? Too much to do this week to even get into that one. But we got the information directly from City Hall, finally. With thanks, I should add. Anyways, this person goes, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? What's all the fuss about? Here's a comment from somebody who listened. Marty, I am one of those businesses on Marion, and I was not notified. Oh, that's what the fuss is about.
My God.
I found out by another business down the street that got a registered mail telling them about a meeting, but it wasn't for him. I would have not known about the first meeting, second meeting, or third meeting. And
that's unbelievable.
It gets better. It gets better. They are planning to put the bike lane across the street from me. When I found out, I notified a few of my neighbors, and no one knew about these meetings. I could tell you that this is right across from Happy Land Park.
Oh, my gosh.
What have we said through the first 3 episodes? This is Happy Land Park all over again.
Yep, same MO.
Yeah, bingo. No two ways about it. Now, I'm going to be speaking with her. I'm going to try to do, I guess, an audio interview with her. Maybe I'll go down to the shop and hear from her. But that's what's the fuss? That's the fuss.
Yeah, they're not letting the businesses know what they plan to do.
They're not even letting them know. Never mind hear how they feel they're going to be affected.
Yeah.
Or traffic flow, or their customers, etc. Another piece of correspondence that we got. I just listened to your last podcast on the above noted. You are 110% correct about what you are saying. I'm one of the resident people living on the south side of Marion between Uville and Archibald that will be affected. Again, Happy Land Park. I'd like to speak to you personally about the last private meeting that took place on February 28th where the residences involved, which included the west portion, meaning the stretch from like the Marion Hotel back towards the bridge, I guess, the west portion, at the Notre Dame Recreation Center. So they kind of pull people from Happy Land Park that may have wanted to attend out of their area, and they actually they held this in an area where people, it's amazing. They don't have any studies about how this is going to affect the north side of Goulet, these proposed changes for Marion and Goulet, but they held the meeting in that neighborhood, which was partially convenient to people, on the south side of Marion, in the what they call urban St. Boniface, but very inconvenient to the people by Happy Land Park in the Dufresne neighborhood. Isn't that peculiar? Isn't that odd? They held a meeting in the neighborhood. They didn't invite me. They didn't invite any of my neighbors. Where our office has been for 13 years, I guess maybe I'm not considered a stakeholder, just like none of the actual businesses that pay rent on Marion. And so accordingly, I took the initiative, contacted this individual, and I was able to interview them. They provided various documentation. The invitation to the Moving on Marion Street Project Phase 2. They wanted to hear from her, I think because she'd signed up to this. And this is with the consulting company, not with the city of Winnipeg. They were looking at the Marion Goulet couplet or west segment of the project to create a roadway, blah, 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 blah. Work on the east segment from Uville to Lagimodiere. That's what affects this person. Is focused on finding minimally invasive, cost-effective engineering solutions. Your feedback is needed on proposed active transportation solutions idea to make the Marion Goulet couplet more comfortable and pleasant place for residents and visitors. They want to make it comfortable and pleasant for residents. That's interesting. They hosted some online events, and this is basically a year ago around now, April 19th, 20th last year. Following that, towards the end of February, on like 4 days' notice, I think it was, they were invited, the end of February, to the Moving on Marion project update meeting. We created a proposed design that would improve traffic flow and road safety, enhance neighborhood vibrance and livability. Vibrance and livability. Add new active transportation infrastructure. Before we present the proposed design to the public for their feedback, we'd like to meet with you and other property owners to discuss how it may affect your respective properties or access. In this meeting, we will explain how we considered feedback to date, provide an overview of the proposed design, gather your feedback, answer any questions you would have, and then it would move on. See, they want to explain this, get feedback, and then almost immediately afterwards, they move to the open house. I want to go back to this point, Kenny. It catches my eye.
Okay.
We'd like to meet with you and other property owners to discuss how it may affect your respective properties or access. So, Kenny, I want to call a momentary audible. They want to gather feedback before they take this to the open house. Can you play the first clip from she's a homeowner on Marion. She's consented to the use of the interview. She's asked that her name not be used. Mm-hmm. And so we're accommodating that. But she is, in fact, an actual real human being. I assure you, you'll be able to hear right now. Just since they say that they want to talk with them about how this may affect their properties or access, play that first clip, Kenny.
And not only that, but we also brought up, we assume our taxes are going to be amended because of this, because that's not going to be our property anymore. Why are we paying tax? You know what they told us? We never thought about that.
Who said that to you? Whatever they call themselves.
I don't know which one it was. It was a woman. We never thought about that, is what they said.
So this whole thing's a farce.
Yeah. You're darn right it is.
She is
Imagine?
awesome.
Can you what's going on here? Like, seriously, I know there's city councilors listening to this. I know there's people that have been at City Hall before, worked there, presented there. People that, like, I want everybody in the business community, send this to everybody you know in the business community. What is going on here?
Is this a farce?
Business, it's a farce. It's farce. So the meeting, to get direction, They want feedback, and it's a farce.
Yeah.
What? They hadn't even considered. We hadn't even thought about cutting your taxes. I guess because those taxes pay the consultants' fees, right?
We don't worry about money. We're just trying to make bike lanes for everyone's health and safety.
But that's not all. There was other people. Now, this meeting, as she explained it to me, was sparsely attended. There was some squawking about that. Like where is everybody? And we know that this is not properly.
From which side? Like from the other people that are out there, residents, or from the other residents are going side?
Where the other residents are? They're going, where are our neighbors?
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, why is there nobody here? Where's the counselors? Why is there nobody here?
It's almost like they forgot to invite people.
Well, this is practice for the open house. See, this is the warm up. Kenny, let's go to that second clip. You're going to hear that there's among the people that were at this meeting on February 28th was people from other parts of the affected neighborhoods, not the traditional urban St. Boniface, the area near the hospital or Provencher, but there's a couple of different areas. There's the area closer to Youville by the Seine River, and on the other side of that, Happy Land Park. And then further down La Jamodier, tucked away, like where the Domo and the Mohawk are, there's an old neighborhood, the Holden neighborhood, I guess is what it's called, that we reported on many years ago. It was in the Marion Freeway, and it was completely neglected, decrepit playground, just terrible the way those residents weren't getting proper services. And so they're also part of some of these proposed changes on La Jamodier, and so they're there too. Kenny, drop in the clip. Let's listen now to what else people were asking about and what else they were saying at this meeting leading up to the open house. And that you're saying there's one particular girl that seemed to be representing a group of residents who was challenging?
She said at the beginning, I'm here representing, because there was another older woman. She was very outspoken, voicing most of our opinions, right?
Uh-huh.
There were a couple guys that stood up afterward. They were business guys, though, and they started in on different things. The two of us were mostly, and they weren't happy with what we were bringing up. They didn't like it at all. And there was a guy there from the city. I don't remember his name either. And there were a couple of women that were sitting back further. I don't know if they were taking notes. And there were questions that were asked they couldn't answer, and, well, we don't have that, and blah, blah, blah. And, it was a shit show. It was literally a joke.
How are they getting feedback from people if they can't answer questions? And if they can't answer the questions that people are raising, like this begs the question. Before we present the proposed design to the public for their feedback, we want to meet with you and other property owners to discuss how it may affect your respective properties or access. They couldn't answer those questions. Explain how we considered feedback to date. Well, they're getting limited feedback to start with because none of the businesses have been clued in. Gather your feedback. From here, we will develop a recommended design and more precise cost estimate for council's consideration. What?
They're not inviting people and they're not answering questions?
I wonder who that favors. What's the fuss about?
Yeah, what's the big deal?
What's the fuss?
Everyone's going to love the bike lane.
It's a joke. It's a shit show, she said. Now this is trotted out. The media just, they just blandly regurgitate. Here. Let's look at the regurgitation that went on for the open house, what they called phase 3 of the engagement of the moving on Marion Street project. Blah blah blah. We'd like your feedback on the design, how it would change your experience with the area. That was the purpose of this. They want feedback on the design, how it would change your experiences with the area. Is this going to be good? Now, I did speak with a couple other business owners and with the biz, but before we go to that and how this is going to affect their experiences with the area, right? This subject of the effect on business came up with this homeowner. And I asked her what she thought about the fact that the biz has been completely left out of the loop here. Kenny, that's audio Q3. Can you drop that in right now? Let's play that for our audience. What do you think about that situation where the biz and the biz members were kept even less informed than the residents and business owners, as you described at the meeting that you were at on February 28th?
Well, if anything, should have been more notified than we should have. Because, I mean, we're at homes. We got parking in our backyards there, or garages, wherever. The biz, you don't. And there's a lot of them that you go down there that they don't have no parking, or there's minimal parking, and you have to park on the street. So taking away parking now, that's ridiculous.
What was that, Kenny? The biz, they should have been more notified than we should have.
Yeah, that doesn't, that they should have been more notified than anyone else, right?
So here's a resident at the far end, the far east end, really, of the residential, the mixed use section, before you start getting the industrial by Archibald. And she's on the other side of Uville, and she's saying there's minimal parking. She's concerned about the viability of the businesses.
Yeah, everyone should be.
Wait a second. Wait. What did they say at that about the open house, the purpose of the open house? How it would change your experiences with the area. Now, one of the reasons why people are questioning this whole process is because there's already an existing bikeway on Eugenie, traffic calm, 30 kilometers, speed humps. That's where, you remember a few episodes ago, our cover photo was of a guy having to ice pick the trap drain. Guy who used to work for Public Works for 31 years, because the city's more worried about bike lanes than they are about sewers and ice dams and drainage. And she's one of the people that brings up the Eugenie bike path and ties it into how the businesses have been treated in this clip. Kenny, let's run that one right now.
They have the bike path, like we said. They have the bike path on Eugenie. You want to go, and I've seen people on Facebook there saying, well, if I want to go to the shopping centers, blah, blah, I should be allowed to drive down Marion. Why do you have to drive down Marion? Drive down Eugenie and take one of the side streets.
Well, especially since one of the side streets is supposed to be part of a greenway, right? The proposal for Kenny, even though they want to put the bike lanes on Traverse.
It's supposed to be part of the greenway.
They're proposing a greenway for Kenny. Only one business was aware of it, and she only heard of it from some eco person that had come into her shop to start yakking about bike lanes. None of them knew about the bike lanes for Traverse, not one of them.
Should have been told about this. This affects their daily life. They're going to end up closing up because there's not going to be any parking for people. You got restaurants down there. People aren't going to come down here. It's going to be like downtown. Nobody wants to go downtown there. If anybody, they should have been kept up and up on this stuff that is going on. So obviously, they got screwed over. They got screwed over big time by not even being able to attend these meetings and voice their opinions.
So you hear these arguments at the beginning about Eugenie and why they want to go down Marion. They could take the side streets. And that's part of the arguments that are being launched around by different people in the neighborhood that are not being adequately explained because they cannot produce any data for bike users on Eugenie to start with. Okay. But more importantly, look how she described the effect, how it would change the experience of the neighborhood. Those businesses are going to have to close. This affects their daily lives. Odd, isn't it, that something that will affect the daily lives of these businesses that an area resident immediately identifies, and somehow not important enough to get a registered letter, as she suggested in another discussion. She got a registered letter. Why didn't everybody who has a business or property on Marion get a registered letter?
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge miss for the city.
You mean for the consultants? Well, for the city too, because this has gone to this stage, and the city seemingly hasn't noticed any of it. They got screwed over big time. Make sure your city councilor knows that. This is how a person who's been part of this process, and this is what she sees and what she hears from our reporting as going on.
That's right.
Now, when I went to the open house, I said, well, they couldn't tell me how many parking spots are being lost. I said, who the business behind it. Again, this person, I ran that past her. She has an opinion about how the biz has been treated, but I ran this past her, and she had a very interesting answer to that as well. Just to take a listen. Now, at the open house, I asked who wants this. I wasn't told the bike lobby, which is sort of self-evident.
Right.
I was told the biz.
Yeah.
Why do you think the consultants would tell me the biz supports these plans, which would also, by the way, have that impacts your part of the neighborhood when would ask them questions about Happy Line Park. The biz wants this. But these were all consultants at the open house. I'm asked some questions about, as Sandra and other people, about the Happy Line Park neighborhood. They're saying the biz wants it and the biz doesn't. Do you feel that you're, in effect, that your neighborhood's been lied to?
Yeah, of course they have. Definitely.
Well, when somebody says they think the neighborhood was lied to, that's a pretty serious concern. And I'll mention this now with regards to the biz. I did have another brief conversation with the executive director there, the new executive director there this week. What I was specifically told was they cannot say they support this plan at this time. Direct quote.
They might not even know that there's a plan there if they haven't been invited to these things.
Many of their members do not know there's a plan. I've already had that confirmed by many of their members. Right? So we know this. Now, I mentioned, again, before Passover, I went over to Marion Street again to follow up with a couple of the businesses, get their reaction to the last podcast installment about the businesses being kept in the dark about these plans, about the open house, and about the loss of parking and other factors. I went to one other business I haven't been able to get into previously. Is a hair salon. They said that they had heard about. I'm trying to recall this. They knew about the open house. No, they knew nothing about the open house, but knew about the bike lane because a customer came in talking about it, which I think, Kenny, is our fault. And that they knew that there was going to be some sort of loss of parking, but they weren't clear that it was going to be anywhere near them. And they also had no idea about the bike lane on Traverse or the so-called Kenny Street Greenway. I take this information. I'm again in conversation with that resident on Marion. I explain to her, what I've discovered about these businesses in the dark, and listen to this exchange and what she thinks City Hall has to do to get a grip on what's happening before it goes too far and too much more money is spent on this project. I've got at least 10 businesses that had no idea about what these plans were. What do you think Janice Lukes should be doing about this as chair of the Public Works Committee? She took over this process from supervising this process, in effect, from Matt Allard.
Well, obviously, you know what? Somebody's lying, okay? Who is it? She needs to have a meeting to find out who's doing all this and who's not doing all this. And it's maybe time that she had a meeting with the businesses around here and the residents around here and come clean and tell them the way it is.
Janice Lukes needs to what?
Janice Lukes needs to come clear about what's happening here, like whether there's someone lying or whether there's some incompetence going on. But she should be doing something to clarify the situation.
Well, how do they go forward claiming, we're going to get feedback and we're going to give City, listen to where this is going next, okay? This is from that La Liberté article a couple weeks ago.
The one that you translated?
Yes, I had translated for me. The next steps will take place in the spring of 2023 with the recommended final design. We're spending money on a final design and they've left out half the community? And this will be followed by City Council review in the fall of 2023.
Yeah, that's scary.
I hope people will come forward to participate in this project, said Matt Allard. Then there was Brian Pincott, this from the La Liberté article, the former executive director of Bike Canada. It's important that people bring their voices to the table. Telling La Liberté, it's not just good, the whole plan, it's not just good for cyclists, but for everyone. Well, there seems to be a lot of everyone that would dispute that, Mr. Pincott.
If it's good for everyone, they should be trying to get everyone to these meetings to let them know how much better their life is going to be. Not forgetting to invite people, not answering questions. You say, I'm going to get the answers. Because your life is going to be better.
Not that fast, apparently. Now, this resident, again, she gave us quite a bit of her time. It was very nice of her. And she had a little more to say about city councilors. And Kenny, let's play that clip and let everybody have a listen. And you think that Councillor Lukes, as Chair of Public Works, has to have a meeting with the neighborhood now and clear the air?
Yep, exactly. Not only Councillor Lukes, but why isn't it Councillor Allard showing up to these meetings?
I understand why people would want him there, and I don't quite understand why he's not at those meetings.
I think he's scared because he's a chicken. He doesn't like confrontation, and he is a chicken to come out there and face the neighborhood.
Look, he was Public Works Chair when this process started.
Mm-hmm.
Now Lukes has taken over and has inherited a mess.
Yeah, it's a big mess.
How much responsibility do you think Matt Allard has for the mess?
100%.
Well, that's certainly a strong opinion. but this, this did start under Matt Allard, and might I add, Mayor Brian Bowman, right? And next week, there'll be more next week about other incidents involving public consultation during the time of Brian Bowman. And we'll talk about the consultants, and I'll have more about the biz and more about parking. There's more information yet to come on this. I mean, she's saying Matt Allard's a chicken and other such things, but I wonder. I suppose that really I should ask him if he wants to do an interview with us, Kenny, and respond to this. He spent, I don't know if you've noticed, Kenny, but like he continues to pound the drum for him wanting to spend money on a pilot project to plow sidewalks to pavement, 1 street per ward, and he keeps banging the drum on this. But on a project that could force the closure of businesses where the consultants can't explain how the adjustments are going to be made on property taxes, where businesses aren't invited, and I haven't even revealed the full scope of the information we've received yet, or what the biz has to say, and Councillor Matt Allard has been dead silent on this subject for 3 weeks. And he's a member of the biz.
And he also used to work in the Public Works Department, right? Or he's not worked there, but he's chair of Public Works, so he should know what they're up to.
Well, he should have known what they were up to until he was no longer chair of Public Works in November. And
it wasn't that long ago.
Well, you're right. So next week, more about the Norwood Grove biz, the effect on parking in St. Boniface, more about the consultants involved in this fake public consultation process, the history of public consultation in Winnipeg, the troubled history when it comes to things involving bike lanes, including under former Mayor Brian Bowman. And will we hear from Matt Allard? All that and more next week. More of the program. Part 5 coming up. For now, off to the break. More of the Great Canadian Talk Show podcast when we return with the crime courts and public safety update. The Great Canadian Talk Show podcast is brought to you by Midpoint Auto, vehicle sales at wholesale pricing. 1.99% financing on new cars, 6.99% financing on great used vehicles, cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. That's not all. Off-road vehicles, campers, snowmobiles, dirt bikes, even boats. If you're in the market for something with an engine, then that's the place you want to go. MidpointAutomotive.ca, the phone number 833-997-9930. Again, that's 833-997-9930. Midpoint Auto, bad credit approved, good credit rewarded. If you're a listener of the Great Canadian Talk Show podcast, let them know by giving them the promo code TALK, the word talk. That's the promo code, and you're sure to get a great deal from Midpoint Automotive.